Well, if you're going to leave Druid up, I guess why not? We've not seen enough Druid being brought, but what kind of Druid is going to be on show here? Looks like Ostkaka's got the big Druid.
Yep.
And on the other side for Tiddler, I mean, there's no telltale sign just yet. It could be either big Druid or Jade Druid.
Yeah, it absolutely could be. All three of those cards are common inclusions in the big Druid. As in the early game, it still has the same core goal of a Jade Druid. Ramp very quickly, hit your mana curve harder than your opponent can, cheat that mana essentially. But it is looking like it's going to be a Jade Druid for Tiddler and a big Druid for Ostkaka. And the way that this matchup should operate is that Ostkaka and Tiddler cheat their mana curve the same time. Ostkaka hits the big minions faster. But a lot of the time, that's not how it works out, because Jade Druid can ramp Jade so quickly that sometimes those golems can just be big enough to challenge the large minions from the big Druid.
Yep, it's really just going to come down to who can find that ramp nice and early in this match, similarly to any mirror. But this just has that slight difference in those bigger minions that Ostkaka does have available to him. And he does have quite a considerable amount of ramp available, even more so now with Jade Blossom being there. So you've got Wild Growth, you've got Jade Blossom, you've got Nourish, and then you're there. If you start finding those big old chunky minions, this might be difficult for Tiddler to be able to keep up with.
This is exactly what Ostkaka needed. Gotta be ahead of Tiddler, and Tiddler's game plan is going to be slower because not only does he have to ramp mana, but he has to ramp Jade. So if Ostkaka can really take advantage of the lack of development in those early turns from Tiddler, then his game plan will be quite easy to accomplish. He's got all the ramp right now, doesn't need to actually find those big minions, but the density of big minions in the deck for this Druid is so incredibly high.
And just because he's got so much ramp available as well, he might not even need to use his second Nourish as ramp. And he'll probably be able to use it just to search for those big cards in a little bit. Both innovates found, so there is going to be some absolute power plays available later on. Being able to bring maybe a massive Yasharaj onto the board, innovate out, put an Earthen Scales on it as well, just to be able to get an insane amount of value from that card.
Yeah, I would expect to see in a traditional big Druid deck, you have, of course, Kun, both of the Deathwings, Primordial Drake, we saw Alexstrasza in the mulligan, Yasharaj, there can be Ysera sometimes. It can get pretty crazy.
Crazy is one word, yeah.
Pretty wild, Dan Gaskin.
This is the thing, when this deck first came around, everyone thought it was a little bit of a meme. Similarly, though, to Big Priest, it started to turn out that it can be fairly consistent and a real struggle to compete with if they can get that early ramp. But first, actual decision now for Ostkaka. Am I going to be innovating out the Lich King? Am I going to just play Malfurion? Am I going to continue ramping? I kind of like just innovating into Lich King at this point.
It does put the biggest threat on the board very quickly, of course. Is dead to just Wrath or Swipe from hand, plus the 2 minions on board, but you're slowing down Tiddler at the same time. Ostkaka may be able to throw him off of a turn 6 Aya or Jade Behemoth by forcing him to clear off this Lich King if he can, and it just so happens that Tiddler can't even if he wants to.
He does have Spellbreaker if he's really scared of the impact of the cards that actually Lich King generates. But whether that is a waste of a Spellbreaker will remain to be seen, because there are alternatives that he could actually target with the Spellbreaker. I mean, maybe he might be forced into a position later where he has to silence a Yasharaj, for example, to make sure he's not drawing out threat after threat from a deck.
And Death and Decay for Ostkaka is not the best, but not the worst. Let's just put it that way.
No, Army of the Dead would have been absolutely nuts.
Yeah, Army of the Dead can actually be quite crazy. I saw at a recent last Euro Standing tournament, Muzzy was playing this deck and pretty much had only one out. It was Army of the Dead into Malagos, and he had a Swipe in hand for a full clear on board, and he nailed it.
Wow.
It was one of the coolest moments in Hearthstone in my recent memory.
So was that big Druid as well?
It was that big Druid as well, yes.
Okay, so running Malagos is an interesting inclusion.
We will have to see if Ostkaka has it, as the Dragon Suite can change. It's not certainly set in stone. But that was one example of a different kind of big Druid that was also very effective.
I think we've only seen 6 Druids so far this tournament. All have been Jade Druids. I mean, Druid has been one of the most banned classes, unless you're Evolution and just want to leave it up. And beat both Druid and Priest yesterday, which was absolutely insane, by the way.
They got a little punished by it today, though.
They did get punished by it today. But now for Ostkaka picking up Spreading Plague, he does have the option to try and get some value out of it now, but Malfurion is just so tempting.
I'm thinking Death and Decay all the way. This lines up perfectly.
Allows him to draw cards as well with the Nourish, so works out very well indeed, and that's going to be 8 damage hurtling towards Tiddler's face.
Just too good to pass up. The Lich King's silenced, yeah, but it is an 8/8 minion that you know that Tiddler can't deal with. And it's going to be sticking around.
All Tiddler can do now is really go on the back foot here with Malfurion and put up 2 1/5s if he wanted to. Jade Behemoth is pretty slow, but you could go Jade Behemoth and Jade Idol, but then that's your second Jade Idol used up.
Yeah.
But you might have to at this point. Are you going to win this game by shuffling Jade Idols into your deck? Probably not. The game's going to be over by that point.
Yeah, I don't know that you have the time, but I also don't know that you can win with just the Jades that you have in deck. This is definitely a tough spot for Tiddler. The Malfurion for Scarabs is the safest, but if you go for Spiders, then you do have a way to potentially kill the Lich King. Of course, it is easily punished by Primordial Drake, by Swipe Hero Power, or 2 Wraths. So I wonder if that's too risky, or if Tiddler's so far behind that he needs to make the risky plays right now.
Yeah, I think Malfurion, just because of the mana cost as well, it just seems to work so naturally. I mean, there is always the decision. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You go for maybe the poison and hope for the best. Just make it awkward for your opponent. Hope there's no way that they can remove both of them off the board. But unfortunately, there is.
It's going to be the worst.
There were several ways, actually.
Tiddler shaking his head there, knowing that this is just not a game that he was supposed to win. Too much ramp for Ostkaka. The Lich King so early on, Death and Decay, the perfect response to the board that Tiddler had, which he was desperately hoping would stick around so he could actually clear off the Lich King. But the single target removal for Druid is very, very poor. The AoE is very poor. Relies very heavily on minion interaction and cheating the mana curve to just have bigger stuff on board before your opponent. When Ostkaka is playing a deck that plays even bigger stuff than your bigger stuff, there's just not much you can do.
And now Tiddler is just taking the most aggressive line as possible. It's using that second Jade Idol to summon another Jade, get them as big as he can right now, because he knows how far he is behind. Because if he just goes for the stalling game and plays Spreading Plagues, you're just stalling your opponent into finding bigger minions that they're going to be putting on the board. So I like this line of play. It's probably your best chance of actually winning, and you're just hoping that your opponent just has a handful of spells now and doesn't have any of those big threats.
Well, Ostkaka has Deathwing, but I don't think you want to play that down right now. So actually, a pretty threat-weak hand.
Yeah, it's panned out okay for Tiddler. There's not going to be anything too scary coming onto the board this turn, but because Ostkaka's so far ahead already, that these either Scarabs or Spiders, whichever one you want to put on the board, are going to be just a massive danger to Tiddler. And again, I like the Spider choice. The Spider or Scarab choice has gone back and forth.
Yeah.
It's one of those discussions, but I think in this situation it's definitely right.
The Pestilent meta has definitely changed over time. It was Scarabs like 9 times out of 10 at the beginning, and then people realized, oh, the thing that Druid lacks is the ability to hard remove one target. Well, these Spiders give you the ability to hard remove 2. It's too good.
So Tiddler can trade in both of his Jades and then play Spreading Plague, Hero Power, and then he is alive as far as he's aware. Try and stay alive for that turn 10 Ultimate Infestation.
But the board clears off 4 of those Scarabs easily. 5th one just requires a little bit of work from a Hero Power alongside the Primordial Drake or a Swipe or Wrath. So while he is alive, can he actually win this game?
You play to every single possible out, maybe hope for an opponent's mistake. Unfortunately, you are going up against a previous world champion. Ostkaka's not one to be making mistakes, especially in a tournament with high stakes like this one that has so much prize money available to the winner.
Yeah, absolutely. $300,000 total prize pool, $80,000 to first place, $70,000 to second. Prize pool is insane for this tournament. And for both of these teams, they are right in the middle of the pack, so a win in this match would be quite big for both of them. Celestial sitting at 2-2, Alliance as well, I believe.
And now Ostkaka hasn't drawn anything too significant. I mean, yes, okay, he can clear off everything on the board in combination with a hero power, but the next turn for Tidler, it's not so bad. He's got Kun into Ultimate Infestation, and he'll be able to take out the Lich King that will be left standing. And then suddenly he's got a 7-7 and a 5-5 on his board.
Lich King is damaged from the Scarab, so UI does kill it off.
The only
You
trouble
can't kill
is,
the spiders, though.
yeah, those spiders are just going to be sat there. I think actually a Primordial Drake off the top would be the best chance Tidler has to try and stay alive here. And look at that aggression, just taking 3 health off yourself just to get an 8-8 on the board.
I like it. It's the only form of development that Ostkaka could actually make this turn that would be relevant. And going to turn 10, he realizes that he's set up Tidler for an easy Ultimate Infestation on the Lich King. So there needs to be some form of threat-dense follow-up. Alexstrasza's the way to do it.
So Ostkaka's going to have these 2 little 1-1 pesky spiders left to deal with potential a 7-7 and a 5-5 that can come onto the board as the most aggressive play from Tidler here. And then he'll just be able to send 8 of that damage towards face. Yes, okay, it's not going to kill Tidler just yet, but...
Tidler is at 15 after Ultimate Infestation. Chooses not to play Kun. May very well need it for armor if he can actually clear off this board. And knows that it's just going to die anyway. So... 12 damage for Ostkaka. That's 14.
Yeah, just 1 off with the Ultimate Infestation.
Say... Could Wild Growth and look for Swipe. Or you could just Ultimate Infestation and go.
Yeah, and I mean, there's been pretty much no comeback at this point for Tidler for maybe what, 3 turns, but he's been able to keep in it. He's been able to keep it somewhat competitive, but I think both players have known where this is going. But also, the longer this game goes on, the more information both Celestial and the entire tournament gets about Ostkaka's deck and about their big druid. For example, will they find out if there's a Malygos in there? That will be something that they may need, and that will be information had for playoffs.
Yep, just Ultimate Infestation. Try to find the burn from hand to close out the game next turn, even if there's like a Spreading Plague and you know, an armor up for Tidler. And Ostkaka does find that second Ultimate Infestation. So, no way for Tidler to survive this.
And no way for lethal as well, of course. Too much health for Ostkaka. Even Spreading Plague into... Well, I mean, Spreading Plague into hero power keeps you alive, as far as you're concerned.
Yes,
so
it keeps you alive through swipe. The only thing that it doesn't keep you through would be 2 swipes or second Ultimate Infestation.
Yeah, I think Tidler will know the likelihood of him dying here, but you, of course, have every right to make the play that is going to keep you alive the longest. And I guess knowing that even just a swipe could finish this off.
Yeah, I mean, well, single swipe would just finish off the game because Alexstrasza would hit in. So that is going to be game number 1 over to Ostkaka. And the first big druid that we've seen in the tournament, doing exactly what it's supposed to do in this matchup.
Yeah, just so much value and so much early ramp as well. I mean, if Tidler had been able to find a similar amount of ramp, potentially he could have been able to compete with some big Jades of his own, but he didn't find very much at all. And that is the perfect game for the big druid. But now the question for Celestial, how on earth do we counter a big druid? You'd imagine they're going to go for some sort of an aggressive line here. Of course, something like a Zoolock would do a good job. Something like a Tempo Rogue, but that's been banned.
They do have their Zoo Warlock. They also have Quest Mage.
Wondering whether Quest Mage is too slow against Big Druid.
It's kind of tough.
Because I feel like even Quest Mage going into Jade Druid isn't as good as it used to be now, because Jade Druid does have just the potential to run away with things and ramp so quickly and get so much on the board. I mean, we've already seen one Jade Druid versus one Quest Mage this tournament, and the Jade Druid came very close to winning the game. It came down to a 1 in 6 to find Antonidas off the top, I believe, for the Quest Mage to win. But it's certainly a possibility. Tom, though, is going to be taking the reins. Current record of 5 wins and 2 losses. As Cora mentioned earlier, he picked up a 3-0 sweep yesterday.
Okay, it's going to be the Paladin. All right, we have seen this once before. Only half of the deck is known. But it's a very aggressive deck up against a very slow deck like Big Druid. This is certainly an archetype that you would love to bring. Great against Jade Druid as well. Really, any tempo-based deck, like Paladin, like Rogue, like Zoo, could probably get the job done here.
Yeah, Paladin is so great going into a Druid because it has that early game. Even if the Druid has a lot of removal, you've got those big old chunky minions at the other end. We've only seen a little bit of this deck, as you said, but Tyrion is in there. I mean, Stormwatcher is in there, so that tells us a little bit as well.
Yeah, it's a Corpse Taker variant.
So that Corpse Taker could do a lot of damage as well.
Alright, so Ostkaka does find the Wild Growth. He's going to get off to a reasonably good start after this mulligan, but Tom as well. Full mulligans and picks up some very valuable early game.
Oh, and a Rockpool Hunter as well.
That's
perfect for Tom. There is both Wild Growths available for Ostkaka, so you'd imagine that this is pretty much the perfect start for both players. Tom wanted, of course, to get those aggressive Murlocs on the board, and Ostkaka just wanted the ramp so he could get to a position where things like Ultimate Infestation are available, Malfurion, of course, Deathwing could be very impactful in this game as well.
Yeah, this is just about as close as it gets to perfect starts for both of these teams. I imagine we'll see a coin Wild Growth into Wild Growth, but it's not necessary. Could just also be Wild Growth into Wild Growth Hero Power. Save the coin and the Innervate for an earlier Ultimate Infestation, or even a turn 3 Malfurion, turn 4 Malfurion.
I guess what would be even nicer for Ostkaka is if he had like a Wrath or something in hand as well.
Oh yeah.
Just so he could be able to negate some of this damage that is going to be hurtling towards him from Tom.
No, unfortunately that is the one thing he's lacking in this early game, is early interaction with the minions from Tom's board, and this is just a start that even with the perfect start from the Druid, I don't know if it's possible to beat this.
No,
It's just too much pressure.
He probably needs to find a Spreading Plague, I would have thought, to be able to... Yeah, if he can find Spreading Plague into then the Drake, then that is going to be a chance that he could win this game. But now Tom has the chance to play, War Leader this turn, then Cold Light Seer the following turn, or vice versa. Both do very similar things.
Yeah, you could also just Cold Light this turn and try to boost the resiliency of this board, but of course War Leader is much more aggressive. 10 damage dealt on turn 3 alone.
Well, there's a swipe. At least you can take that War Leader off the board. So that's step 1 for Ostkaka.
Oh man.
So he's got swipe into next turn, innovate into Malfurion, so that's going to be at least some sort of stall mechanic. But then this is the scary thing about Paladin, that even if Ostkaka does get to a position where he's removed most of off the board, we get to the latter stages and Tom suddenly throws his Tyrion on the board.
Yeah,
oh, wow.
if you were to just go for Malfurion and Spiders this turn, Ostkaka would have just been dead. And even still, pretty much going to be dead. Have to coin out the Malfurion so you're not dead on board, but then you can't coin out the Primordial Drake. The Earthen Scales would be fantastic if you could make something stick. No, with the 5 armor he wouldn't have been dead from the Blessing of Kings, but it would have been very close.
At least these Scarabs do some work, but that Rallying Blade being picked up means that both of them can be killed off as well. And it just begs another question of, what are you going to do now, Ostkaka? How are you going to stop this damage?
Another Innervate off the top.
Yeah, it's probably what he needs.
Potentially.
Or maybe a Spreading Plague.
A big game hunter.
And because of Spreading Plague, we might see Tom not actually play another minion here. quite potentially. So you could just Rallying Blade, take out both of the 5/5s, and then just pass.
Yeah, it's possible.
Well, considering the only other minion you're going to be putting on the board is either a 1/1 or a 1/3, it's not going to be that influential against a potential another Scarab from Spreading Plague.
And neither of them challenge
Ew.
anything effectively. Yep, exactly like you said, Tom, just choosing not to develop anything on board. But Ostkaka cannot actually do anything this turn except for hero power. So he is at 12, can go to 15, 8, 10, 13 on board.
And then
But the 2 Murlocs is game.
you can make it 3 if you needed it as well. I'm sure Tom will just have a little bit of a count. He'll finish this one off, and he'll be tying up the series 1-1. So Big Druid got the work done in the mirror, or I say mirror, in the Druid matchup, but unfortunately cannot compete with the sheer aggression of the Murloc Paladin. And now Alliance, they can go back to the drawing board. And maybe, just maybe, we'll see Alliance pull out something that is a hard counter to a Murloc Paladin. Maybe they'll bring out a Hunter of their own. We've seen a few of them arise now just to try and take out this Murloc Paladin. And when you are in an advantageous position like this, when you've already taken the lead, you could go for a hard counter.
That was a turn 6 kill from that Paladin. I don't think I've seen a better Paladin start in this entire tournament. That was exactly what Celestial needed that deck to accomplish. Maybe a bit of a better chance against Big Druid than against Jade Druid, because Jade Druid does at least develop some early Jades in the early game, maybe a bit more to challenge the early board from the Paladin with, but Celestial just ran away with that one. And now Alliance needs to counter this Paladin deck. They have a Taunt Warrior, which with Whirlwind effects and Sleep with the Fishes can clean up the board quite effectively, but no Fiery War Axe means that you're lacking some of that early game clear. Now they have their own Paladin, they have a Zoo, their Rogue has been banned away, and they have that aggressive Tempo Mage deck.
So Powder has tried Quest Warrior, he's tried Murloc Paladin, he's tried Tempo Rogue, but he's lost all 3 of those matchups so far. And I know full well he won't be happy with his performance. I know sometimes Hearthstone does just go against you, and he feels like maybe he couldn't have done anything about it anyway, but that remains to be seen. He has one more chance at trying to make up for those losses here today.
Yeah, tough go for Powder so far. Can he get this win?
Alright, well on the other side, of course, Tom, he has been quite the standout player for Team Celestial, only losing 1 game so far and winning 5 with both Zoo and Tempo Rogue, but now he's piloting the Murloc Paladin, and potentially he could do a lot of damage to Team Alliance here if Powder isn't able to pick up a victory.
Right, this is going to be the first time we're seeing the Shaman from Team Alliance. It is hard tech to take out Paladin. That's a Hungry Crab in the opener, when usually you'd be seeing some Galaka crawlers. So some strong choices made from this Shaman deck from Alliance, and looking like it is going to pay off. In general, Shaman is very well placed to beat Paladin. Devolve is an incredible tool to remove those Murloc synergies. Maelstrom Portal as well usually can clear up a full board post-Devolve, because the minions themselves are very weak from the Murloc Paladin. So I really like this choice from Alliance. Definitely they were looking to find that hard counter with this deck.
Yeah, we've already seen Tiddler lose to an Evolve Shaman, not Evolve Paladin.
Evolve Paladins, that's a
very
new
interesting.
archetype.
Yeah, we already saw Tiddler lose to an Evolve Shaman, and that was an Evolve Shaman that wasn't even running a Hungry Crab. So I love this from Alliance. Most teams, it seems like they've teched their Hunters very heavily, but Alliance, maybe they've spread this out a little bit. So their Hunter still going to be a bit of a surprise. Instead, we're going to get a nice little Hungry Crab showing up in Evolve Shaman. And it's going to be able to get some work done here, Cora.
This is so much early pressure. Usually the best early turn from Shaman is that Bloodsail pull Patches into a Flame Tongue Totem. That would have been fantastic here. But the Hungry Crab as well, just going to put that 3/4 body on board, challenge everything that Tom can play on turn 2. And you see Tom smiling a little bit, shaking his head. He knows when he's been had.
Yeah, it's just this format allows for such a perfect opportunity to have counters like this, but the fact that you then get it in your mulligan as well, you're just so heavily rewarded for the commitment of putting Hungry Crabs in your deck. And now an extremely poor turn for Tom. He does have the Corpse Taker next turn, which actually would do a pretty good job against this board, but that might be a little bit too late because the amount of power already because of this Hungry Crab is absolutely insane.
This will be one of those games on ladder where if I'm in Tom's position, I've already conceded and moved on to the next one.
Well, I mean, the last time we saw Hungry Crabs come into the equation was, what, yesterday, when I think it was turn 3, we saw a concede after 2 Hungry Crabs had come onto the board, chewing up some Murlocs. But Tom, after only seeing the 1 Hungry Crab, still feels like he has a chance in this game.
Wow, just coining out the Cold Light. Setting up for a Rallying Blade next turn, probably. And there's the Devolve drawn for Powder, so not actually a lot that he can develop this turn, but a very reactive hand if Tom manages to get a couple of cheap Murlocs out on the board together and build up any semblance of a threatening board state.
Yeah, and I wonder how much pressure you want to put on now as Powder. You could just use one of these Maelstrom Portals just to put even more power on the board. Is there anything that can punish you that comes out of the Maelstrom Portal? Probably not really. Maybe something like... no, just maybe the 2/3 that of course increases the cost of your minions in your hand. The Emerald Hive Queen, is it?
Yes, it is. Emerald Hive Queen increases the cost of minions in hand by 2. But the Cabal Lackey will do just fine. But Powder really does need to find some form of development here. Just get something going on this board.
Yeah, because even though he's going quite wide on this board, they're all pretty low impact minions. Which would be fine if he picks up a Bloodlust next turn, but...
Yeah, but without Bloodlust or Evolve, Flame Tongue Totem as well. It's quite good. It's still not a very threatening board.
At least he's picked up Wrath of Their Totem, so it means his Maelstrom Portal could potentially do even more damage next turn.
Yeah, I mean, with the amount of removal in hand for Powder, this board could just be enough to get the job done by itself.
Oh, wow, and just the Megasaur being put onto the board as well.
I mean, it challenges the Crab, the Corpse Taker does not.
So a Bloodlust off the top would win this game, but that is not one. But this might be one of the occasions where you could consider an Evolve, Cora. Of course, the Hungry Crab is going to lose a lot of value, but you could trade first if you wanted to.
The thing is, Powder is ahead. And though Evolve generally is quite safe to play, there is a failure rate. If you pull Doomsayer, then suddenly Tom gets first development, and now you have no resources of your own to put back on the board. So I don't think this would be a situation where I would Evolve. I think it's just a little bit too risky. Go ahead and maintain this lead while you can. You're close to just winning this game on a Flame Tongue draw. So don't risk it.
Yep. Completely agree. And now Tom might have to play this Corpse Taker just to try and negate some of the damage. But there is a Devolve there for Powder as well. So that's going to make short work of any potential blockade that Tom does put up.
The Paladin Blockade. That's exactly what Wicker Flame Burn Bristle is there for, but I don't believe he will be enough this time.
I mean, it might if Powder gets another dead draw. I don't know, maybe I'm fishing too much for Tom here, but...
I mean, Powder does have the option to Evolve if he wants to.
Yeah.
So I feel like if he ever finds himself in a position where he thinks that he could lose the board, he will just use it.
So you put one of your taunt minions on the board, of course. I guess if you're worried about Devolve, you put the least impactful one, and then you've got the Corpse Taker to follow up next turn if it is removed. Oh, there's one of those Flame Tongues.
It's pesky Flame Tongue Totems. With a Devolve, clearing both these minions, leaving no taunts, it would be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 damage for Powder this turn.
Yeah, and I say do it.
Yeah, Can't leave anything on the board because Spike Ridge Steed is playable next turn.
Yeah, and Flame Tongue just allows you to trade so effectively as well.
Make good use of that healing totem.
So you can trade in your Wrath of Air and trade in your...
I'm going Shield Bearer into the oh shoot, what is that card called? Shadow Ascendant.
Yeah.
And then Firefly into the Penguin.
Okay, yeah, that's the most amount of damage going towards face. And the thing is, for this Murloc Paladin, is that Yasuke does have this crazy start, and it has this amazing late game as well, but it's not running those consecrations anymore.
No.
Something that would be pretty juicy at this point. I was saying that, even that wouldn't do the job now.
I do miss the days of Equality Consecration, of Paladin being the class with the easiest full board clears. Paladin got the job done against the Druid, but the Shaman so well positioned to beat this Paladin, especially with that Hungry Grab on turn 1. So, Powder has picked up his first win in this tournament. Alliance has picked up their second win in this set. Can Powder close it out right here with the Shaman? What will Celestial bring to the table to try and counter this? They have their Warlock, of course. They've also got their Mage. It's going to be Mitsuhide trying to bring it back for his team.
And it was Powder trying to get his first win, but now Mitsuhide is also going to be trying to get his first win of the tournament. So if he was to have a loss here, not only would it be a loss for his team in the series, but that would be him at 0-4.
Yeah.
That would be painful.
It'd be a big personal blow.
Yeah, but one of the, in my opinion, one of the most up-and-coming players that we've got in Hearthstone. A fantastic deck builder and a fantastic pilot as well for any deck available.
Yeah, it seems like the professional community holds Mitsuhide in very high regard.
Quite right.
And his results in this tournament just aren't reflecting that. So I would love to see him step up here, pick up a couple of wins. It's going to be the Warlock.
And we've seen what Warlock can do. It does have that potential to be able to just sweep a whole series aside and just take out deck after deck. Can Mitsuhide do it? I guess we're looking at Hungry Crabs that are going to be irrelevant.
Yeah. Yeah, we are. Well, if you play a Primal Fin Totem, you can crab your own 1/1.
This is true. Actually, it's not the end of the world. This could be pretty handy.
Zoo Warlock, absolutely deadly in the hands of Pavel. Can Mitsuhide pilot this deck to success as well with a start up against this Shaman from Powder? The Warlock hits the board much faster than the Shaman. Has much more powerful minions in the early turns. Powder's advantage will come from, again, the Devolve and the Maelstrom portal, and if he's able to put together that Doppelgangster Evolve combo, maybe it'll be enough to overwhelm Mitsuhide.
Yeah, but if Mitsuhide can find Keleseth, perhaps... Oh, there you go. Oh,
okay.
Oh, okay. So Voidwalker, Keleseth,
right
Captain. That sounds pretty nice to start a game with.
It's just about as good as it gets.
Yeah, I think you could argue maybe Flame Imp instead of Voidwalker as the best start, but I would take that every day of the week. And I'm sure Mitsuhide will be more than happy to see that after his struggles so far in the tournament. You've got to remember, he was put in positions where like he had a Hunter going into a Murloc Paladin, and you'd be expecting to win that game. Similarly to how Powder was just expected to win that one because he had those Hungry Crabs in, but Mitsuhide was very disappointed when he wasn't able to walk away with that one. But his team, they're still doing all right. Celestial looked a bit shaky to start with, but they find themselves middle of the pack. But they'll certainly be expecting to be a little bit higher.
Yeah, Celestial and TSM having very opposite experiences in this tournament. TSM looked very dominant in the first 2 days. Since then, they've definitely fallen off the wagon a little bit, whereas Celestial looked very weak the first couple of days. They've since picked up the pace a little bit, gotten a couple of those wins in a row. Maybe the team confidence is just growing, and now we could use Mitsuhide's personal confidence to grow a little bit as well. His first win would certainly help that.
Yeah, he's in a good position to do so as well. I mean, Keleseth into Captain is amazing, providing he doesn't draw patches next turn, which does happen far too often, I might add. As soon as you think you're in a comfortable spot, patches does just come along to ruin your day.
Like, I'm a 2/2 now, let's go!
Yeah, and it's not the end of the world. You are drawing a 2/2 for 1 mana, so it's okay. But then look at the follow-up as well for Mitsuhide. He's got some more demons he can put on the board. Doomguard is going to be very impactful a little bit later on as well.
Mm-hmm.
If he can find maybe something like Malkazar's Imp to go alongside with it next turn, then that's going to be very juicy for him.
Flame Tongue Totem lined up quite well this turn, but the South Sea Captain pulling patches would have just been terrible. So Powder gonna go with the Jade Claws and instead leave up the full mana amount for next turn, or leave up just 2 mana for next turn.
Sometimes I think I should not say anything because I think Hearthstone can hear me.
Yeah.
Because it just draws the cards that I talk about. And that is Malkazar's Imp right there, which is going to be fantastic. It means next turn, after he's used his Captain here, he can just go Voidwalker, well, probably tap first, then Voidwalker Malkazar's Imp, hope it survives, and then you've got Doomguard the following. That's an incredible start to a game.
Dan, are you cheating?
Yeah, quite possibly. This is actually a rebroadcast, 10 minutes behind, and I know exactly everything that's going to happen.
Wow.
Yeah. Sorry, I haven't told you that for 4 days.
We have literally no excuse to be getting things wrong.
Nope.
Ben. Oh, shoot. Oh,
Wow.
okay.
Okay.
Mitsuhide gonna go with a wider board this turn instead of just getting that Captain out there with the 3/3 patches then. Gives him 1 more turn to potentially draw that patches. It's very unlikely, but it's possible.
This play is a little bit more weak to Flame Tongue Totem. I guess both plays were weak to Flame Tongue Totem in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, maybe you just don't want to lose your Captain that easily.
Well, this play is less weak if there is no Flame Tongue Totem. So I think you're hoping that your opponent doesn't have the Flame Tongue Totem, and then suddenly their trades become a little bit more awkward. And then you can put patches onto the board next turn to get rid of any nonsense that they plop onto the board.
Yeah, like if Powder just had to trade over the Voidwalker and the Keleseth this turn and played a Primal Fin Totem, for instance, then patches just kills off the Primal Fin Totem quite easily. So either way, Mitsuhide's keeping a pretty definitive lead here.
And let's be honest, if he does draw patches the next turn, it's not the end of the world, because it's turn 4, you can play patches and the South Sea Captain anyway. So I like this from Mitsuhide. It's a very patient play.
Quick, Dan, what's the draw going to be?
It's probably going to be patches, to be honest.
I think it's going to be Bone Mare. Nope, both wrong. That's okay.
Soulfire is a little bit annoying. You'd probably rather draw that later on, because it might be just tossed away now by Doomguard. But I guess a Soulfire isn't it's probably one of the best things to be tossing away because it's not going to be that impactful. Instead, you want some of those bigger minions to come later in your hand.
Yeah, much better to throw this than a Bone Mare, for instance, or a Despicable Dreadlord. This is just going to be overwhelming for Powder to deal with, I think.
I suppose another reason why Mitsuhide might have kept back the Captain that extra turn as well is he's already seen Hungry Crabs have been teched into this Evolved Shaman. Could be Galactic Crawlers in there as well. Traditionally, it is Galactic Crawlers rather than the Hungry Crabs, so you imagine it's probably been a simple tit for tat and a substitution. But we've seen how heavy the Hunters have been teched for both matchups, so maybe it was the same. But another Doomguard. Probably the worst pickup that Mitsuhide could have got there, because now you're going to have to toss away one of these Doomguards. But you're still in a fantastic spot.
Still okay. You still get to put a 6/8 charge on the board. Now you just get to start swinging face, putting on this pressure and threaten to close out the game in just a couple of turns.
No Devolve to go along with the Maelstrom, but even if you did get that anyway, Doomguard is just going to go into a 4-drop, and that's not going to be dying anytime soon.
And no Volcano teched into this Shaman, I would think. So, looks to me like Mitsuhide is going to be getting his first win on the board, tying up this series for Celestial, which means that Alliance will now have to try and counter this Zoo Warlock deck as best they possibly can.
Which may well be...
Yeah, without the use of their Paladin, Priest, or Rogue.
Yeah, may
or their
well
Druid.
be a Zoo of their own, I imagine. Which has happened so often in this tournament. We've had those Zoo mirrors or the Rogue mirrors coming down to the final game, those 50-50s, and it's, I'll be honest, it's been Keleseth or no Keleseth, or Bone Mare or no Bone Mare on 7.
Very, very early mulligan decisive.
But it's been getting to those games that have been the important thing. Whilst we haven't seen that many mistakes being made in the Zoo mirrors or the Rogue mirrors necessarily. It's been the more tricky decks to play that we've seen the mistakes happening.
Yeah, I suppose that is true. It's been your warriors, your priests.
Yeah, and if you don't make those mistakes, then maybe you don't even allow your opponent to get to a position where they get to take a 50-50 with a Rogue or Zoo, for example.
That's a good point.
But nothing to stop the pressure from Mitsuhide, and I imagine Powder's probably just going to concede here, which he will. He'll be happy he was able to pick up his first victory of the tournament, but now so does Mitsuhide as well. And this game is going to, well, this series is going to a Game 5 then, and it's down to Orange to take the plate and say, all right, can I take this series for Alliance, or is Mitsuhide going to be too much for us to go up against?
Yeah, we were saying Mitsuhide is one of the up-and-comers in competitive Hearthstone. Well, Orange is going to the World Championships this year. So if anybody can beat up on this Warlock from Team Alliance, I would think it would be Orange, as he is currently, I would say, the most competitive player on the team.
I mean, we could certainly see that from just his individual results. He's 6-2 at the moment. We saw him get that 3-0 sweep with Tempo Rogue. We saw him win 2 games in a row with Zoo as well. So he's been put in this position before. And I think that if you could entrust anyone on Team Alliance, it probably should be the man with a bigger quiff than me on his head.
Whew, some good hair.
It is a fantastic
Covered
hair
it with a beanie yesterday. It was sacrilege.
Yeah.
All right, 6 wins, 2 losses. Played the Rogue, Mage, and Warlock so far. Bit of an aggressive play style, but what's it going to be to counter this Zoo Warlock? Is it going to be just more of the same aggressive tempo decks like you were saying, like we've been seeing in game number 5?
Orange is like a girl. He takes 40 minutes to get ready. It's very annoying. I think I've waited for him at least every time. I take like 5 minutes to do my hair. He has to blow dry. He has to do his makeup. No, but almost.
So Orange forgets a lot of things, and I think he's probably missed more flights than he's actually made like the right flight on time. So he always has to like rebook his flights, and you know, he oversleeps. One time when I was at, I think we flew home together from Seat Story. The one time he actually got on his flight, he forgot his house key at the event. So then he had to get that. He had to stay at a friend's house in Sweden, and then
He had to stay at my house.
and yeah, he stayed at his house actually. And then they had to mail the key to him before he could get into his apartment. So
He's forgetful. Takes extra time in the morning to do his hair.
Well, he's got great hair though, hasn't he? So
But somehow, missing all of those flights, forgetting your house key, mooching off of powder for a place to stay, just culminates in one incredible Hearthstone player.
yeah, that's the thing. They didn't have that many great things to say about him, but I'm sure they'll be having lots to say about him if he's able to pick up a victory here. And they say he's like a girl. I mean, do you take 40 minutes to get ready in the morning, Cora?
It depends on what day it is.
Yeah.
If I have to, like,
On a Tuesday, it's fine, but a
see
Wednesday.
people, then maybe. I don't have to see people, then likely no.
Then you're just 5 minutes. You're just like powder.
You know, it's a miracle if I leave my room on those days. But, and again, my hair is not quite as high maintenance as Orange's. It's a little dry, a little straight, and we're good to go.
This is true. It's hard to perfect a massive quiff like that on top of your head. But here we go then. Game 5 of the 3rd series of the day.
Yep.
And it's a big one. It's a very important one for both of these teams who are trying to climb up those rankings, trying to get a better seed going into the knockout phase. Orange versus Mitsuhide.
And it is gonna be the Zoo Warlock mirror, but Mitsuhide's got a Keleseth, so suddenly Orange has already lost the game.
I mean, we laugh, but sometimes it can just be like that.
It can be as easy as that.
If Orange doesn't find a Keleseth of his own, then he may just fall so far behind. Of course, it is winnable.
I mean, okay, it's the Keleseth, but then look at the 3 minions
Yes.
surrounding the Keleseth. This hand is phenomenal.
And Vicious Fledgling being in there for Mitsuhide as well. That could do some real damage. I mean, we all know how Vicious Fledgling came about. I remember, Cora, back when Vicious Fledgling first came out, back in Tespa, and we first witnessed on a live tournament Vicious Fledgling into Wind Fury, into just crazy nuts shenanigans. And of course, in Druid, it was absolutely crazy with Innovate. So now imagine if you get Kalaseth on the board, it's able to clear up other stuff, and then you manage to put Vicious Fledgling down as well. If there's no answer for Orange, then if it wasn't enough that all those buffed up minions were coming out of your hand, well, Vicious Fledgling might do the work itself.
Doesn't matter how fabulous your hair is.
If you don't
Your
draw
opponent's
Kalaseth.
got a Kalaseth and you don't, well, at least you look good on camera.
And there's Captain as well. Another fantastic draw for Mitsuhide. So that's both times now we've seen him have a 1-drop into Kalaseth,
Yep.
into Captain.
Yes, we have. And this hand is just even better than it was in the last game because this time he had Flame Imp instead of Voidwalker. So what more can you really ask for if you're Mitsuhide? But it is interesting to watch the players live on camera. If this were Pavel piloting this deck, for instance, he'd be laughing and smiling and giving his opponent some eyes right now. Mitsuhide, however, he's all business.
Laugh it up, fuzzball. Yeah, exactly. Pavel would just be giggling away, but both these players, they know how important this match actually is. Like we said, even though a lot of these players are friends and there are jokes here and there, the amount of money on the line is incredible. And Orange, thankfully, can clear up this entire board, which means that the Vicious Fledgling is not going to be able to get the work done unless Mitsuhide is brave and goes for something like Vicious Fledgling into Coin, into Soulfire, but then you do have a risk of throwing away that Captain of yours.
That's scary. But you need to get this initiative back somehow. That's certainly the easiest and fastest way to do it.
Yeah, I guess similarly you could just go Captain into then Coin into Soulfire. And now you've got 2 Fledglings.
But now you've got a 4/4 Fledgling that doesn't just die on board.
I really like utilizing this Soulfire now. But I'm unsure if I prefer Captain or whether I prefer Fledgling.
Yeah.
I think the Captain's influence by pulling out of patches is too large to give up. Okay.
Patches gets
Just
the
taking
easy
the trade
clear
and
here.
Yeah, leaving a 3/3 on the board is fine.
So even though this isn't quite as aggressive of a play as a Vicious Fledgling could have been, doesn't represent the same threat, you get to hold on to that Soulfire, which lines up incredibly well into Crystal Weaver on turn 4, for instance. And you don't need to throw away the coin then, so Fledgling Soulfire could potentially discard coin, and from then, Mitsuhide is in a very solid position. Not that he hasn't bet this entire game, but this just really solidifies it.
Councilman as well is really tempting here. I mean, I think naturally he would have been thinking Fledgling into Soulfire straight up, but Councilman is also pretty influential in this matchup. Yes, okay, the Fledgling could just go absolutely crazy and could get Wind Fury, then plus attack, then stealth, and all of that jazz, but a Councilman is just statistically a better minion.
Over time, but over time the Vicious Fledgling gets better too.
Yeah.
I don't know, I think they're quite comparable. Vicious Fledgling just has the nuts potential, you know? And you might as well get that while you can. The Councilman, of course, is very strong looking at the follow-up from Mitsuhide.
Well, a Vicious Fledgling can be killed by something like a Doomguard, like a Soulfire. However, a Councilman would survive both of those things, as it's a buffed up one.
It would. Yep, it's got 6 health.
But the decision
But
is
I
made.
like this.
Yeah, I mean,
It's aggressive.
I'm working out just which is better, but I love this really, because I love to see Fledgling do some damage.
You certainly don't blame him for this play. But I think both would have been certainly very valid, considering it's looking like Fledgling plus Firefly Flame Elemental next turn. So the Councilman essentially would have been a 4/6. No, 5/6. Yeah, because it's a 2/6 already.
At least Orange does have now Voidwalker into Crystal Weaver, which makes it a little bit more difficult for this Vicious Fledgling to go towards face. But that helps things out quite considerably. Doomguard off the top means you can send Doomguard into the 2/4. And then if you want, you can send that 4/4 to face. It depends if you want to make the value trade here.
I think that we're going to see Fledgling into the Voidwalker, Doomguard into the Crystal Weaver.
Yep.
Because how does Orange deal with 3 threats now?
Yeah, that's certainly the most safe play. The greedy man in me wants to see this. Yeah.
Okay.
I like Mitsuhide. He's one of my favourite players, just for this.
He's your kind of guy.
He's my kind of guy. He just likes to send a fledgling towards
And
face.
This is fine too. The Doomguard stays pretty healthy now. If you were to hit plus health, stealth, divine shield, then it's very likely that this fledgling would stick around.
So even if Orange now trades off this vicious fledgling, there's still going to be power on the board. Living Spores going to provide 2 1/1s. And that's still going to be 11 damage then coming from Mitsuhide. And I'm struggling to see a way back now for Orange. I guess Ken
Yeah.
Bloodhoof can put some value on the board, make it slightly more difficult. And then if you were to draw in into a Bone Mare, then maybe that's your way back in. If you tap here, you're taking yourself down to 18. You can then go Councilman into Flame Imp, but then you're taking yourself down to 15. And you're leaving so much power on the board that even just a Doomguard off the top would kill you off. So I think you have to just Bloodhoof.
Yeah, I don't think that the tap Flame Imp is the correct play here, but both plays are just so underwhelming that your instinct is to look for something better, but I don't think there is anything better. So take a value trade, hope that you pick up Bone Mare off the top. It's just about as good as it's going to get. 14 damage now from Mitsuhide.
18 with Wind Fury.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're in a position where you could probably tap to look for more as well if you wanted.
All right, so Poisonous Divine Shield, and I believe that is Stealth.
Yep. I guess either Stealth or Divine Shield are both fine. And it's just going through the motions now for Mitsuhide, saying, right, how am I actually going to lose? A Bone Mare would be pretty disastrous in this situation, but I just have to hope that my opponent doesn't have it.
Yeah.
Because there's no way for me to clear everything that's on the board.
Make the right trades, and he should win this game. Remember when Soulfire cost 0?
Yeah. It's a scary day. Or scary
day.
days. No Bone Mare found though, and that is going to be just game, pretty much. Orange has no way to compete with this board. He can kill off the Doomguard, but then what else do you have? This
Well,
fledgling is doing so much damage. Of course, it isn't over.
he can tap into his own Doomguard potentially, or he could just take 3 minions in hand and try to challenge board with his own reasonable board. Flame Imp knocks him to 13. Karen kills the Doomguard. 4, 5, 6 on board, potentially 10 if the fledgling hits Wind Fury. So Orange, he's not dead yet.
No, I mean, the trade from Mitsuhide previously onto the Bloodhoof was actually very interesting, because he could have just sent that extra
Yeah.
damage towards face and then potentially threatened lethal next turn.
Right? Like if Bone Mare comes out, Bane Bloodhoof's going to be there no matter what.
Yeah.
So Bone Mare is still going to represent a big wall. I don't know. That was maybe an unnecessarily defensive.
Well, I mean, you look at
Trade.
it now, and Orange could have been on, what, 7 this turn? Because Doomguard was 6. So if you find Wind Fury, then it's just lethal.
And how would the Doomguard have actually died then? It wouldn't have.
Yeah.
Karen trade in, Doomguard still got 2 health left, so yeah, I don't know if I like that. I certainly wouldn't have made that trade, but
And now Mitsuhide is actually in a position where he might be forced to just use this fledgling to make a trade rather than even going towards face. I don't
I
like
think-
it again, but his playstyles have suggested
yeah.
he might go for that.
he's playing very defensively. I mean, the Divine Shield means that this fledgling still is not going to die. And unless this is one hell of a draw from Orange, it's still not looking good. Yeah, the Dreadlord's nice. Both the Saronite Chain Gangs die. But then you've got 9 minimum on the board.
Yeah, 9 minimum. Wind Fury would be lethal.
Or 3 minions.
3 minions.
Or
so like,
Soulfire or Doomguard.
yeah. I
It's a
mean,
lot of outs.
even though Mitsuhide has been very passive in his play over the last few turns, It's worked out for him.
He's been trying to minimize potential blowback
Yep.
that Orange could have. In the process, did slow down his clock just a little bit.
But I think I would be absolutely fine with all of the plays, all of the slow plays. So there's Bone Mare, that will finish things off.
Yes, it will.
And Celestial will take this series 3-2. But I was just going to say, MitsuhideHS played such an aggressive line to start with, but then it seemed like his strategy changed ever so slightly.